We have a presentation now by Mr. Tarun Chawla of ATG on a very equally important subject. COVID has disrupted everything. How is the industry coping up with COVID challenges? How did the industry face the COVID, and what is expected in the post-COVID phase? To give his views, we have Mr. Tarun Chawla. He is the head of Sesame business at ETG. He's going to present on Sesame industry during and post-COVID challenges and opportunities. With these words, I request Mr. Tarun Chawla to take over. Thank you, sir.
So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to friends. Um, so first of all, I'd like to congratulate the organizers for this wonderful platform where they have brought everybody together in such an unprecedented times where COVID has disrupted our lives, and that is exactly my topic for today, which is something which is such a wide topic and something where everyone has its own experience and the way we look at things. These are things which have never happened in the history before, or the history where we have so far participated in the. So these are the times where things have no reference point in the history nearby, which is fresh in our mind. Uh, as we all know that Sesame Information has done a pretty well job in organizing the event last year and keeping the industry together in some form and manner, creating a platform where people can exchange views and organizing some reports and data. So congratulations to the entire team. It's not easy of what you have achieved in such a short span of time. So you can all congratulate yourself and regards from our side. So please start my presentation. So to start with, as my topic, yeah, so the disclaimer, let me just adjust my screen. It's, yeah, okay, please. So go to the next slide, please. This is a regular disclaimer. So I'll be covering four topics today, the period, how the events unfolded, and how is the. So I've taken China's demand pattern because China being the important market or the largest market for sesame seeds gives you a flavor of how things have panned out in a year which was impacted by COVID. Challenges and opportunities on a broad scale how things are. And I just have added one more point from my side, which is COVID or climate, which had a bigger impact. We are all worried about COVID because something, media and in our life it has a big significance. But what we miss out sometimes is which has even a bigger significance on our supply chain, which is the weather anomalies. So please continue. Next slide. So as the events unfolded, let's look at the period of February to March. Prices were firming up from Nigeria when China first announced virus, something similar to SARS, and it was by then China's problem. Rest of the world, it was news, something which they have just heard something has happened in China, something related to SARS. Then by February and March, when China was under lockdown and we saw Wuhan under a complete lockdown, it was a strict lockdown. By definition, what is lockdown meaning? Not by the lockdown which we call it as a lockdown, a flexible lockdown. No, it was not a flexible lockdown. It was a lockdown by in real sense. And people didn't move out. People followed the guidelines. And that goes to show how successful China was to curb these COVID. February and March, the port stocks were going up. Then came the roller coaster ride. April to June, China opened up. We opened our own factory by end of March. By following all the guidelines the government gave us, we had a strict control, like probably in all the other geographies, the guidelines were shared. It was monitored very carefully by the government how we are running the factory and sanitizers, health checkup. So when The roller coaster ride happened where India went under the lockdown, the Africa was going under the lockdown, Nigeria had port closures, Burkina said under a lockdown, and then China local prices went up by $300. We saw a surge in prices. And then when the real demand, it is true for China that the manufacturing was ahead of the curve. People were still not accepting the new normal and the demand had not picked up. So we created a surplus in the processed sesame seeds or everywhere. So we used our factories to make huge inventories, and June was when we felt the pain. This started from May, but May, June, we saw a decline of $450 per ton. Huge decline in the processed and the local sesame prices. Next slide, please. So July to September, the other speakers spoke about the Tanzania Mozambique crop. The southern hemisphere crops in total give us close to 200,000 tons. This was more than 200,000 tons. It was a public domain information. We all were somewhere between 200 to 220 number. India's summer crop got traded despite the lockdown and less workers availability. Jay mentioned in his presentation 100,000 tons came out of the summer crop, and this was all when India was under the lockdown. The African origin prices declined and even reached the three-digit number, which also the other speakers covered. We saw Mozambique prices below 1,000 levels, and that happened for a brief period. China was the maximum beneficiaries of these price decline, while we heard some small trades happening to other geographies. But China buys most of it, and we covered that in the next slide. That 85% of the Tanzanian Mozambique crop came to China. Indian industry was of a belief that more labor, more better crop was expected. A winter crop of 400,000 tons was under the prediction, given the higher labor in the rural areas. By the time La Nina fear had set in, we saw some earlier signs in West Bengal when there was some flooding issues. By the time La Nina was just setting in, it had already shown the impact, but then we saw more weather patterns, whether it was in Myanmar, whether it is in China. We'll talk about that more. But that impacted the sentiments, and month of September, I'm sorry, saw a record. It was a record of 130,000 tons of arrivals and 130,000 tons of port sales. We normally get 3,000 tons to 3,500 tons maximum. So 80 to 90,000 tons is what we have maximum seen in the past going out of China ports. But the month of September saw 130,000 tons. That was something which we could have never predicted. But that helped a lot in easing out the pressure and supporting the prices. India's winter crop came as a surprise for a few, but I think for most of the industry participants, this is the third year in a row. India's previous crop was 240. Now we are talking about 300. We'll see how it actually pans out. But yes, this is the third year in a row where India is less than the expectations which the winter crop it generally talks about. So the port stocks in China did go above 200,000 tons, but the prices went up. Yes, we saw the first speaker in the day say that it's not necessary that you see that the port stocks are up, then the prices will also go down. So the inverse relation didn't happen. The port stocks were going up, and so did the prices. China's local crop damage and Myanmar border trade, these are some of the things which were causing all these prices to go up. By November, the lowest price was 1200, and then soon it moved to 1250 levels. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please. So in this slide, I'm trying to, like Hachin mentioned, Madam said very clearly that we can reach 1 million ton of total imports in China. This is very likely this season. Basis our estimate, we have very close to 1 million ton. World excess supply all got diverted to China because China was out of the COVID fear. But what COVID created in terms of additional supply or the pressure to China, the climate balance. The local Chinese crop saw a decline, and a 40% decline of the local China crop actually helped out to balance the supply situation in China. So yes, we have seen a change in the pattern of who is the biggest supplier to China, but Tanzania, Mozambique this year can be a huge 200,000 tons plus to China, which is a very likely scenario. And Sudan, the point which I would like to mention here is that has been shipping consistently to China. These are the and a lot of us know that when Tanzania, Mozambique prices were hovering around 1,000, 1,100 levels, the Sudan Sesame was out of parity. But then we still see a lot of arrivals in China. This is something which clearly shows that the Sudan shippers have found China port as their main market, and they have stopped looking for the dollar buyers. So to give you a flavor of how the China demand looks like in terms of during the COVID, so the sesame oil wholesale demand did plummet, and but the way the home cooking has been on a rise, which is not a regular scenario, the retail demand has surged. Whether it is all the brands like Ryufu, Wilmar, Luha has come up with their own sesame oil, which is doing good, and other brands have also done well. So overall, a positive outcome for sesame oil, and I'm sure tomorrow Japan, when they talk about their demand story, sesame oil is a good growth driver. And I think that is also true for peanut oil and other healthy oils. They have benefited significantly in all geographies. China first, and now we see that in India as well. One major thing which has changed the demand pattern in China is the edible or the edible roasted demand, which has been seen an uptake. We have seen a lot of brands trying to launch ready to garnish, which is for the home consumption. These packings are wonderful. They are designed in a way that you can sprinkle them on your dishes, and it's something which is now becoming a habit of table so then once it gets into your dining table, then it becomes a habit to sprinkle it on your dishes, and that's how the edible roasted is also gaining traction. So traditional snacks are doing pretty okay. We have seen some local brands trying to use the new ways of packing the traditional snacks, which we have seen in other geographies also. Like if to give a reference point, like what Bikaner and Haldiram has done in India, some of the local brands are also trying to replicate that in China, and they're trying to use the packaging material and the supply chain to create some of the traditional snacks. We have seen also the sesame salted powder also enter, which is also used in dishes. So sesame paste demand for restaurants did see a decline. Haidilao, which is one of the famous hot pot restaurants in China, was closed for uh, owing to COVID, and one of the largest consumers. So these did see a decline, but it is back on track. People are going out, and the life has returned to normalcy, which means the restaurant eating habits are coming back in. Yesterday, the China inflation data came in, and this is again there is no inflation. So overall, there is not much bad news from anywhere. China's currency has appreciated against the dollar. So challenges. Yes, we have a lot of travel restrictions, visa restrictions. Movement of human resource is very difficult. If you have any plan which you need to execute, it becomes some nightmare. Logistic disruptions, I think all our industry colleagues have spoken about it. Nigeria is a case, an example where the logistic disruptions continue to be there with or without COVID. So we have issues and higher costs today. Trade war, COVID, all have resulted. Multiple reasons have resulted in higher sea freights. So we have huge imbalance of trade, and that is also causing higher sea freights. The biggest challenge, in my opinion, today is the lingering fear of another infection. Do we have this fear in our mind, and do the governments have this fear in their mind, so that if something goes wrong tomorrow, any country can close their border in fear of a pandemic? So this is the fear, then international business will take a hit. Our lives will not get back to usual, that we can just go travel to another geography and create a business relation. It will become a huge challenge. Another variable in terms of when you are assessing risk. This increases the uncertainty and value at risk. So when banks or the investors are looking at agriculture trade finance or the agriculture trade, they will believe that these kind of anomalies will further create their value at risk. So we will be treated as high risk businesses by the banks. Opportunities, lesser disruption by briefcase traders. We have seen a lot of small briefcase traders disrupt the business. Be in Tanzania, Mozambique, especially in Mozambique, there were used to be a lot of briefcase traders disrupting the trade. This year didn't happen, and it was a benefit to the regular exporters who are present in a big way. I believe with virtual meetings and less chances to meet new people, I think industry participants will realize the importance of strategic partnership, because you cannot change partners so often now. Like, you can just go to another meeting and meet another supplier. So it is not going to be that easy to build those buyers and supplier relationships in the virtual world. And but yes, the virtual office meetings can bring down your business costs, but well, let's see how that works out. Health and wellness, yes. I think China, India, we look at other geographies, developing geographies, people have realized the importance of immunity and health and wellness. So the money would be spent in the right direction, and I think Sesame out of that trend. Next, please. Okay, so this is a slide which I want most of the participants to pay attention to. That, see, if you look at this from since 2008 till 2020, you see a lot of blues and reds. So red indicates El Nino and blue indicates La Nina. So there are so many frequent weather events which are happening in our and disrupting our supply chains. So the year we are talking about in 2020, if you look at it, is already, which is not marked as blue yet, but starting from July onwards, we have seen three last numbers. If you see, they are already in the negative zone of zero point 0.6, -1, and -1.2, and another two will make it a strong La Nina year. This climate change, is it man-made or is it cyclical, or we were blessed for those 50, 70 years where we look at the earth, say it's a 4 billion old planet, and we have seen those last 100 years or so very good for climate. But now if we see these climate trends more often than then, these will have a huge impact on our agriculture commodity trading. We see crop estimates changing from 400,000 to 300,000. One of our friends from Mozambique said that whatever planting area we talk about, at the end of the day we are so much weather dependent, especially the sesame as a crop and as a supply chain. It's dependent a lot on weather, and these are the bigger risks in our business than COVID, and there is less understanding of how we can predict and how we can factor them in. But I think this is something which the industry will need to pay more attention to, and so that we can understand these trends better and plan ourselves accordingly. So this is it from my side. Thank you for giving us ETG this opportunity to speak about a topic which is fairly ongoing and something which is unprecedented times. Thank you, Mr. Srivastav. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Tarun. That's a very, very good exposition of what's happening. Taking China as a case, because China saw COVID, went through the process of tackling that, and then came out. So it was a well thought through research work, I would say. And thanks also for alerting us to look beyond COVID, especially into the climate change and its impact on sesame business. Thank you so much, Mr. Tarun Chawla, for his excellent presentation.